Bhagavate Vaishvadevaya. So today we're entering into the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, called Vishvarupa Darshana Yoga. It's basically the darshan, which means the blessing of the Supreme Being. The Vishvarupa is the showing of divinity to an ordinary mortal. It's the revelation of the existence of the Supreme Being. Up to now, the idea of God is just pretty much that, an idea of God. We extend our wishes and our transference of the highest possibility we can sense into ourselves, into this principle we can call God. And as we progress on the journey, this principle seems to start taking on substance, qualities, and characteristics. But there is a time in the journey where God shows himself to the seeker. It takes certain conditions. It takes a wholehearted, total commitment on the part of the seeker. But these are revelations of the nature of the Supreme Being, and they come as glimpses. And when they come, there is a shattering effect. Everything that you thought God was goes out the window in the moment of actually receiving the darshan of the Supreme Being. You become like dust in that moment. So it's called a yoga, because a yoga effectively means the path, or in this case, the means by which we move towards that which is the object of our yoga. In this case, at this stage of the journey of devotion, the yoga are these glimpses of God or the Supreme Being. And they create this powerful impact on the whole system of the seeker. And these break up, shatter the delusion, shatter the idea of you being a separate individual self in existence, in the way you've known yourself. Every other realization up to now, the transformative effect has been progressive, it's been incremental. And in this incremental progressive, you don't change. You don't necessarily get how you're changing. It's not aware, you're not aware of how you're changing. Others around you can be. Others around you can be affected. But you're not aware of it. And even at this stage, you're not aware of the fact that for you to be able to be at the frequency where darshan is possible, you have already traveled a long distance. It's like you take a negative and positive wire and you move them into proximity with each other. They have to get to a certain closeness before the arc occurs. The electrical circuit is activated and you get that spark. Well, this is the same thing. You're moving up to now into the frequency in which the nature of the Supreme Being is revealed to you. It is a profoundly humbling event. There is a terrible, intense elation, and I say terrible, intense elation, and for some there can be fear. because you feel absolutely powerless and insignificant and weak in front of this image, this revelation, when it occurs. After this, the object faith moves into the back seat as an important element on the spiritual path, because up to this point, there's this coming and going and coming and going. But at this point, this kind of event, you now know God. You don't need to believe in God. Satyamai said, I don't know anything about God. And I said to her, well, you'll be surprised when you meet him. So there are those of us in the West, which is very, as a culture, secular, this idea of God is either dismissed or given only this sort of conceptual understanding. And when one begins on the spiritual path, you can meet the structures and energies and forces that are there in the universe and be assisted by them in your experience, and never meet the being, the supreme being, the cohesive intelligence of which we're all an emanation, that has created and sustained this existence. It is the manifesting principle of the Absolute. Now, some would call it the Divine Mother, others would call it Divine Father. In this case, in the case of Krishna, an example of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is revealing to Arjuna, who is up to this point, Krishna was representing something that Arjuna couldn't get. Even when Krishna was describing his nature, Arjuna wasn't getting it. In the 7th chapter, Krishna explained this. Because of ignorance, people are not able to realize my unmanifest nature. They believe that I've assumed a finite form by birth. They're unable to know me, the Supreme Being, beyond the reach of mind and senses. This is verse 304, and then 305 is, veiled by my yoga maya, I'm not manifest to all. Hence these ignorant people are unable to know me, the unborn and imperishable Supreme. Now this isn't just Krishna having a real big ego moment. He's actually speaking with the recognition that unless someone is at his frequency, unless someone has come out of the veil of delusion, that they can't understand or have any recognition that divinity, that the Absolute could inhabit a body, which means they can't know that they are that. All they can do is see, oh, well, this is an interesting human being. This is many interesting things happen around them, but they can't know in their own direct experience, because of the veiling of Yoga Maya, the nature of divinity in a body. In the Hindu tradition, they have 3 gods: Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Brahma does not incarnate, but Shiva and Vishnu incarnate. That means they take bodies for the purpose of performing a function in the evolution of this existence. The main sustainer and supporter is the Vishnu principle, the one that brings about abrupt changes and destruction of the old is the Shiva principle. In the ongoing action of the creation, Shiva represents the guru, represents the principle that destroys ego to allow truth. That which is beyond nature, that comes in at an individual level to allow the emerging soul to emerge out of its cocoon of its human identity and to experience, to some extent, its divine nature. But Vishnu, he comes for the work of carrying the burden of the ignorance and the darkness. And in our traditions, we have it as, in the tradition of the Hindu tradition, it's the latest incarnation was Krishna. And there were other manifestations of Vishnu in the eras coming up to Krishna, including a fish, a pig, a monster, and so on and so forth. That Vishnu came in to different forms for the purpose of being on the planet. Just the fact that one form could tap into the frequency of the Supreme Being. In that, it was able to maintain the smooth movement of the evolutionary process that was there for all of creation, but especially for mankind. So in the Christian tradition, it was Jesus. It was Buddha. And each brought something to the collective consciousness that hadn't been there before, that allowed for man to come out of their natural inclination to destroy themselves and move them back on the track of the purpose of the evolution, the true Dharma, the Satya Dharma. Christ brought love. Love your others. Love your fellow man. Serve the world. In the Old Testament, God was fearsome, requiring enormous sacrifice. But in Jesus, God loved you more than you could love yourself. Complete different paradigm for mankind to integrate, to live. So Krishna, the Vishnu principle, is manifested in this chapter. That a divine being comes down for the purpose of carrying and lifting the collective consciousness. In the case of Krishna, the uniqueness is he was aware of who he was even at birth. So the uniqueness of the manifestation is that in every other incarnation, the vehicle, the pig, the fish, the monster, the other forms, including Rama, did not know, or only periodically knew, their purpose and their absolute nature. But in Krishna, he knew it at birth. So he's representing a completely integrated state of consciousness where the absolute has waken up as an individual. Now, when the Bhagavad Gita was written 3,000-4,000 years ago, this was very, very rare because the collective consciousness couldn't allow it. But now, this possibility of the integrated state, of the universal and individual, the impersonal and the personal, of coming together in the same vehicle, is now available. This possibility is available because the collective consciousness is more tolerant, more capable of meeting the vibration in which a form could sustain itself while carrying this force. Previously, if such a force entered into the person and they went into the rapture and the absorption with the Supreme Being, the body would fall apart. It couldn't hold together. But now, the bodies are more subtle. They're more sophisticated. The support structures have allowed us to come out of our bestial origins, out of our primitive humanity, and develop into a more refined and capable vehicle for this event to occur. This is why the Bhagavad Gita is so relevant at this time, because it shows an entire path. So now let's get back to the Gita. What's happening at this stage is we're nearing the accumulation of force that has been acquired in Arjuna's nature from the first chapter through this 10th chapter, where Arjuna now, his ego is in collaboration with his being, and he has committed himself. He is in direct ability to have a direct experience of aspects of the divine nature. In chapter 10, it was the vibhutis. Each time he is able to evoke these qualities, his frequency is expanding and heightening, becoming more and more in approximation to the nature of Krishna's consciousness. And it's a uninterrupted progress without an interruption, which means the continuity of the action that started with the early formation, which, by the way, would have been the 6th chapter, because this stage of the journey, the movement to the universal, doesn't begin until the consciousness has reached the 6th chapter. That this movement from the 6th and the 7th and the 8th and the 9th and the 10th chapters is a continuous focus of Arjuna's consciousness moving towards that which is being revealed. So now we can begin to read the chapter. This chapter, like the 10th chapter, we're going to do more reading than usual because it is revelatory. And the communication of the message should be received in a more, not trying to think your way through this, but in a sense of openness. When they stage this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in India, which they do very frequently, this is the most dramatic moment of the stagecraft, where the Vishvarupa is being revealed. Fireworks and thunder and all this is part of the stagecraft of it. So it has this dramatic flair to it as an approximation of what it is for the individual when this darshan is experienced.
Chapter 11, Vishvarupa Darshana Yoga, the Yoga of Universal Vision. Arjuna said, O Lord, through your compassion you have told me the highest secret of the Supreme Self and destroyed my delusion. I have heard from you in detail of the origin and dissolution of beings and also of your imperishable majesty.
So Arjuna's delusion has been destroyed. The Yoga Maya veil has been seen through. It's still there, but it's been seen through. So it's now possible for Arjuna, in his experience, to have a sense of the divine in a way he's never had it before. This is the peak of devotion. Devotion is the ecstatic whole body experience, absorbing the consciousness. The mind grows silent, the heart opens and expands, and the whole being has this vibratory energy running through it. There's this sense of exaltation and power and force. The consciousness is being lifted to the proximity of the state of the Supreme Being, but it's utterly new, where the Supreme Being, Krishna in this case, has gotten used to it, but for Arjuna, it is such a shock in relationship to what he's known before. And this intensification of the consciousness, this frequency that he's now vibrating at, has put him into a state in approximation of the Supreme Being. So if you read these, as we read these verses, it's Arjuna speaking what before Krishna spoke.
O great Lord, thou hast described thyself correctly. However, O Supreme Being, I aspire to see thy divine form. O Lord, if you think it possible for me to see this, then please show me your imperishable self.
So this is the nature of the journey at this stage. As the devotee moves into relationship to the beloved, as the knower moves into relationship with that which it seeks to know, it comes to this event horizon, this place where the two are separate. But there is this moment of crossing, threshold, by which this union becomes possible. So this is now, Arjuna is at the threshold, the event horizon. He is partaking of the state, but he's still separate. He can speak of it. He can experience it as something other than himself. This is what it's like as one moves in approximation to the divine person, the Supreme Being, is worship. Absolute, overwhelming, absorbing devotion.
The Blessed Lord said, Arjuna, see my various divine forms of various colors and shapes, 100 and 1,000-fold. See the Adityas, the Vasus, the Rudras, the Ashwinis, the Marutas, and many wonderful forms never before seen by anyone. See also the entire universe that is both moving and unmoving, all united in me, and Arjuna, whatever else you desire to see.
This is the state of revelation. At this state of consciousness, the secrets of the universe are being revealed to you. You're seeing the beings and the forces. You're seeing all the different planes that support this plane. You're able to get glimpses into divine beings of great, high, powerful order. You're beginning to understand how Maya works, how creation works, what's its purpose, how this whole evolution has come about. So this is a state of revelation that comes when one is still on the threshold. There's still a separate being. So it gets tons of knowledge with all this experience. It's all occurring simultaneously. Even prior to this state, when one gets a glimmer, always what comes with experience is tons of information about the nature of creation. For me, when my awakening happened, the first moment of awakening was a touch of this. Although at that time I didn't know what it was, but I knew that when it entered, my consciousness couldn't stay awake and went unconscious because it was too bright of a light for my mentality, too bright of a light for where I was as a human being back in 1998. But when I recovered sufficiently, I was in this revelatory state. And that's when I saw the whole universe. That's when I recognized that it's all ordered, that there's an intelligence behind everything, that it's all interconnected, that we have a role to play, and that we're all in a natural process of maturation, and that every human being is on this path if they know it or not. All of that came in that glimmer, that whatever that fraction of a second is. This is what it is that's been occurring for Arjuna up until this point. But he's saying now, in the next verse, something very important.
But you are not able to see me with these eyes. Therefore I am giving you the celestial vision. Now behold my majestic power.
What is this celestial vision? It is the veil of separation. It's the last veil that makes us believe that we are experiencing or knowing the Supreme Being. It's the veil gets moved, and what happens is there is this immediacy, absorption in the event of the revelation. Up to now, it's still the mind, it's still the person. And as we'll see in this verse, it's coming and going. It hasn't been able to establish itself, even in this chapter. It won't establish itself till later. But this veil is temporarily, Krishna pulled the veil apart moved it to one side to let him have a glimpse, the darshan, of his true nature.
Sanjaya said, O king, saying thus to Arjuna, Krishna, the great Lord of Yoga, revealed his majestic supreme form. The infinite, resplendent Lord, with many mouths and eyes, many wondrous aspects, with many heavenly ornaments, and wielding many celestial weapons, wearing celestial garlands and apparel, anointed with divine perfumes and anointments, made up of all wonders, and having faces in all directions. If 1,000 suns should rise in the sky simultaneously, it might compare to some extent the splendor of this great being. There Arjuna beheld the entire universe with its manifold divisions established as one in the body of God of gods.
In this case, the Gita is using the third character, Sanjaya. Sanjaya is the narrator of the Gita. He steps in as if an observer, one who's witnessing this relationship, to give some perspective, because at this point, there's no way that Arjuna can narrate at this point what it is he's experiencing. He doesn't have the language. He's not in his mind. He doesn't have anything to know it with. So Sanjaya is describing from his vantage point what he's seeing is happening.
Filled with amazement, his hair standing on end, bowing his head to the Lord, Arjuna said with folded hands, Arjuna said, O Lord, I see the gods and all beings assembled in your body. Lord Brahma is seated on his lotus seat there, and also I see the presence of all the heavenly seers and serpents. I see you everywhere with many hands, bellies, faces, and eyes. O Lord of the universe, I can see neither your beginning, nor the middle, nor the end. I see you crowned, armed with a club and bearing a discus, a mass of splendor, shining on all sides, immeasurable and blinding, with the effulgence of the blazing fire and sun. O Lord, I see you, who is so difficult to behold. You are the imperishable, the supreme object of knowledge. You are the final abode, the defender of eternal law. You are the primeval being. O Lord, I see you as one, without beginning, middle, or end, of infinite power and endowed with numerous arms, the sun and the moon as your eyes. I also see the blazing fire in your mouth, burning all the universe in your radiance. O great being, this space between heaven and earth is pervaded in all directions by thee alone. O Lord, the three worlds tremble at seeing thy marvelous and terrible form.
So now the state that Arjuna is in is he's seen all the glory and the splendor. And now he's beginning to recognize that this force is much greater than his capacity to be with it. It's as if he's moving into the proximity of the sun itself. And he's being consumed, he's being burned in this fierce force, this fierce splendor that he's experiencing. And now the ego in him, because this revelation is happening to the intervention of Krishna. It's not happening because Arjuna's ready and mature for it. And it's overwhelming his system. And his remaining ego is saying, oh my God, this is too much. This is overwhelming. So we'll go further in this before I'll expand on that. Continue.
Gods take shelter in thee. Some out of fear and reverence pray to thee with folded hands, saying, Save, save. The great seers and perfected ones praise thee with hymns of heartfelt reverence, saying, Be it as thou will. The Rudras, Adityas, Vasus and Siddhas, the Vishvadevas, the Ashwinis, the Marutas, the ancestors, the Gandharvas, the Yakshas, the Asuras, and the perfected ones, all behold thee with wonder.
These are all descriptions of the various creative beings that are expressions of the divine supreme being. So they are the primal organizing intelligence which allowed for physical manifestation of consciousness to occur, that have all been an expression of the supreme being's purpose. So these are great, in each one of these in their own selves are divine revelations, and darshans can occur with any one of these lesser, apparently lesser forms. So it's giving this sense of scale of what it is that's being revealed. We're not just revealing a being that's much, much greater than a human being or a realized being. You're beginning to, and this is what was revealed in the in the Vibhutis. These divine beings Arjuna was meeting. He was experiencing their force and their great power and their great intelligence and their great knowledge, and was in awe and wondered of these beings, but recognizing there were even more and more. So this process of revelation that occurs is very, very, very rare. It is not something us in the West have any reference point. I know that when I come down and into my normal human consciousness, even I don't believe what it is that I'm experiencing. It's just so outside of what this form has been programmed with. How could this happen? And why did it happen to me? And why isn't it happening much more everywhere else? There's been a great deal of confusion and hesitancy in my own nature to share this. But it's a stage, I can tell you. It's a stage that occurs as you move from one phase of consciousness to the next phase. And this is what this chapter of the Gita is revealing. The conclusion of this next phase. The first phase was moving from the ego to the being, the individual being, free of attributes, the impersonal self. This second stage is moving from the personal or impersonal ego into the universal ego, the universal person. So this is a phase in the journey. It's not the conclusion yet. It's just a showing.
O Krishna, seeing your great form consisting of many eyes, arms, thighs, feet, bellies, and mouths, gaping with many huge teeth, the worlds tremble, and so do I. O Lord, seeing you touching the sky, of blazing hues with gaping mouths and large fiery eyes, I am frightened at heart. I feel neither fortitude nor peace. Seeing your mouths bearing many tusks, glowing like the fires of universal destruction, I lose my balance. Have mercy, O God of gods, abode of the universe, have mercy on me.
This is the plea of the undeveloped ego, not ready for this revelation. It's saying, have mercy on me. It still thinks it's this ego. It still thinks it's this human being with a story and a history. And it's trying to hang on to that and miss this process, even though it is thrilling. It's like too thrilling. So it begins to look scary, frightening, like you're about to be destroyed or consumed. This is an exaggeration. This is, I want to make a point. This is because of the nature of this chapter is revelatory. It really just takes something from a much lower frequency and suddenly moves it to a much higher frequency. If this first glimmer occurs, anything in you that's still undeveloped, anything in you that's still immature is going to feel like it's overtaken like it's dying, like it's losing itself, that it's about to be destroyed.
All the sons of Dhritarashtra, along with other kings, Bhishma, Drona, and Karna, and also with our chief warriors, quickly enter your fearful mouths. Some are seen with crushed heads clinging between your teeth. As many currents of water from rivers flow towards the ocean, so also these heroes of the world of men enter your flaming mouths. As moths enter a blazing fire to their destruction with great speed, so also these creatures swiftly enter your mouth, only to be destroyed. O Lord, swallowing the worlds on all sides, you are licking everything. Your terrible rays blaze forth through the entire universe, filling it with thy radiance. Tell me who thou art, so terrible of form. Salutations to thee, have mercy, be kind to me. I wish to know you, the primal being. I am unable to comprehend what you are doing.
Arjuna is finding himself being sucked into a vortex. It's like he's falling into this condition which he's losing control. Like a moth can't protect itself from the flame of a candle. It just is absorbed. It's moving to the flame. It's heat and light activating something in its nervous system that it can't turn off, and burns in the process. Maybe it has enough sense to pull back, but it will come again and burn in the process. So this is very a good allegory for the nature of the transformational process when one opens up to the force of the Supreme Being. It's captivating. It pulls you in, and it consumes that separate part of you as in the process, reducing that part of you so that in you, which is the same as it, can be revealed. So if the moth could say something, maybe he would say something like Arjuna is saying right here. Oh, supreme light, oh heat, I cannot prevent myself from falling into your splendor, to your enchantment. This stage of the journey, it's no longer striving. It's the beginning of falling into. It's now all that the ego can do is, instead of resisting, it's hanging on in the process of its own disillusionment that occurs inevitably. So this is describing a very critical transition that occurs at the end of this particular phase.
The Blessed Lord said, Arjuna, I am time, the destroyer of this world, and now I'm here to annihilate the worlds. Even without you, all these warriors who are arrayed in the opposite ranks shall cease to exist. Therefore, Arjuna, stand up and attain fame. Having conquered the enemy, enjoy the prosperous kingship. By me alone, they have already been killed. Hence, be a mere instrument. Drona, Bhishma, Jayadratha, and Karna, and also other warriors have been killed by me already. Therefore, do not hesitate. Fight and kill. You shall conquer them.
Krishna is saying, it's all over, Arjuna. You're not going to be able to recover. This is the irrevocable transition. That even if these issues keep going up, there's still the battle to fight after the Gita. Their hold on you has already been destroyed. This is what he means in this verse. By me alone, they have already been killed. So this is the realization. This is the state of consciousness that comes where it's actually over, but you don't know it's over. The root has been cut, but you don't know the root has been cut.
Sanjaya said, hearing these words from Krishna, Arjuna, who was terrified and trembling with ecstasy, prostrated with joined palms, and spoke thus in a choked voice to Krishna. Arjuna said, O Lord of the senses, indeed the whole universe rejoices and is gratified by thy praise. The demons, being frightened, run in all directions, and the perfected ones bow down to thee. And why should they not bow to thee, the original creator, greater than even Brahma? O infinite Lord of the gods, you are the dwelling place of the universe, the imperishable, the manifest and unmanifest, and that which is beyond both. You are the primal God, the ancient being, the supreme abode. You are the knower, the object of knowledge, and the knowable. All the universe is pervaded by you. O Lord, thou art the moon, the wind god, the god of fire, death, fire, and water. Also, O Supreme Being, thou art the Creator God and the Great Grandshire. Salutations to thee 1,000 times, again and again. Salutations to thee from front and back and from all sides. O Supreme, you are infinite valor and strength. You pervade all. You are all. Whatever I have said out of ignorance or affection, addressing you as Krishna, Yadava, or friend, and in whatever way, in carelessness of thy majesty through negligence. And if out of fun I have disrespected you while at play, at rest, or while seated or dining, either alone or before the eyes of others, O Krishna, for that I beg your forgiveness.
So he's been living with this Supreme Being all along. He's been joking with him, he's been teasing, he's been rebelling and fighting and questioning him. Who are you? How come you're telling me to do this? Why should I believe you? What authority do you have? He had no sense of what it was that was speaking to him, that was revealing to him. And now at this point, he's getting it. He's getting it because it's actually entering into his person at this stage. He's now coming out of this absolute ecstasy because it's too disturbing. And he's entering back into his person and he's remembering, holy shit, I've been treating this guy like somebody else, like anybody. He's recognizing the possibility of the divine manifestation. He's seeing that a human being can be the Supreme Being in truth, with the veil of the human ego removed. He's getting that, holy shit, I have been treating this event as if it was a person. So he's getting it. And once you're at that place where you get it, like I said before, it's all over, but your system can't handle the pressure. It needs more time to prepare itself. The darshan has been given, but you can only hold so much. Your cup is only so big. There have to continue to be more darshans so that you can have the capacity to hold it and to function, to be in the world yourself as the Supreme Being.
O cosmic being, you are the father of this universe, of the moving and unmoving. You are adorable, the most venerable guru. There is none indeed equal to you in the 3 worlds. How then could there be anyone greater than you, O Supreme Being of incomparable glory? Therefore, prostrating to you, I ask forgiveness of you, O Lord, as a father to a son, a friend to a friend, a lover to a beloved. Please, O Lord, forgive me. Have mercy on me. Having seen that which has never been seen before, I am delighted, yet I tremble with fear. O Lord, show me that form in which you originally appeared before me. Have mercy on me, be gracious. I like to see you wearing a crown, armed with a club, discus in hand as before. Become that very form with 4 arms, O thousand-armed one, O you who have all forms.
Never knew Krishna had 4 arms, right? As a different kind of human being back then, I guess. Some of them had 4 arms. So now there's this descent. Now there is this returning, coming back down into this more normal consciousness. Because why would the Supreme Being ask for forgiveness from the Supreme Being? No. What's happening is Arjuna is returning to where he was before. He's asking for the veil to be put back on. He's saying, this is too much. I can't take it anymore. I can't handle this anymore. Please let me pretend you are this person with 4 arms.
That I can accept.
Yeah, that I can tolerate, that can joke with me, that can laugh with me, that can, be like another person. So I don't have to live in the presence of such a thing. Let me argue with you. Let me pick a fight with you. Let me complain. Let me tell you what you're doing wrong. Let me fix you. Make you a better person. Let me be this way with you because I can't tolerate being present with the possibility that you represent. Not just you, but for me. I don't know how to hold what it is that I'm seeing in you. This is where Arjuna has become dust. He's bowed utterly. He does not need anybody to explain it to him. He does not need faith to know that there is such a thing as a Supreme Being. An irrevocable event has occurred in the consciousness that occupied the form of Arjuna. And this is what has happened to the seeker at this stage. Even if the consequences of the event are causing this reverberation, maybe for months or years afterwards, it is eventually going to become integrated. It's eventually going to become lived. Now for Krishna, it's no big deal to be the Supreme Being. He's gotten used to it, right? He was that from birth. And for one who comes to this state, after some many years, it becomes normal. It seems that all those things disappear. And you're left with being, when you're in the physical form, you're left with being in the human consciousness. This is why Rama, one of the incarnations before Krishna, would forget who he was. He had to have people around him say, oh, but you're the Supreme Being. You shouldn't be caught up in this issue. What are you worried about? You're the Supreme Being. And then he would remember who he was. Oh, of course. This is my creation. I'm the one who's doing all this. I'm the authority. I'm the source of everything. And then he forgets it. So this is the heralding of integration between the universal and the individual. And what's going to happen now is all this fireworks and fanfare and ecstasy and terror are all going to quiet. And then something else will start happening.
The blessed Lord said, by my grace towards you, Arjuna, the supreme form of mine has been manifested through my power. This form of mine, made up of splendor, has never before been seen by anyone other than you. Arjuna, no one can see such a form of mine in this world by any means, neither by the study of scriptures, nor by sacrifice, nor by gifts, rituals, or austerities. Have no fear or confusion in seeing my terrible form, and with cheerful mind see again my previous form. Sanjaya said, speaking thus to Arjuna, Krishna again showed his own form. Having resumed his wonderful gentle appearance, he cheered up Arjuna, who was terrified. Arjuna said, O Lord, seeing your gentle human form, I am now calm and comfortable. The blessed Lord said, Arjuna, it is very difficult to see this form of mine. Even the gods are constantly longing to see it. Not through the study of the Vedas, not through austerities, not through gift or charity, can one see this form of mine as you have seen now. Arjuna, by unflinching devotion alone, can I be known and be seen in this form. One who works only for me, considers me as supreme, is devoted to me, is free from the evils of companionship, and is free from malice towards all beings. He alone attains me. Thus ends the 11th chapter of Gita, entitled The Yoga of Universal Vision.
So you can do all the spiritual practices you want. You can become a great yogi up to this stage. But for this glimpse, this darshan, you have to be in relationship with the Supreme Being. It can't be an idea or a principle. You have to be in a all-consuming absorption relationship. This then evokes in the Supreme Being this intervention that allows you as a human being to become the Supreme Being. So the Bhagavad Gita is describing something that when we look at the spiritual literature here in the West, it's just alien. It's just very, very different than anything that we can comprehend is available or possible. Give me equanimity, let me awaken. How about a little bit of enlightenment? That'd be cool. But this, I'm not sure I want to go there. It's a complete giving over of yourself as an individual to something that up until this point can only be approximated. It's revealed in pieces, in segments, over long periods of time. In order for these to gather sufficient momentum, to prepare us to be ready, it's a kind of complete commitment and dedication that us in the West have little preparation for. Yeah, I'll give you all my money, but I got this secret bank account. Oh yeah, I'll give you my heart, but I'm holding out for my favorite little thing over here. I'll surrender ever being anything but dust before your feet because, I want to be a famous teacher. I want to influence a lot of people. I want people to see this. So these things all have to be surrendered. There has to be something in you that's ready. Where the shell, the definition of your separative human existence has grown fragile or weak or has lost its ability to keep you contained. We can't do this alone. We can prepare ourselves in the first 6 chapters. But from the 6th chapter to this chapter, we have to get the agreement or the support of the universe, either directly to these universal principles or indirectly to a teacher or a master who has realized this. Then, in our complete surrender and submission to that being, we can become connected to what it is they have. This is the great power of the Indian tradition and why the guru in that Indian culture is so revered as the principal. It is more than a teacher. It is a channel, the oracle. It is the vehicle by which one can make the transition from the human state of consciousness to the supreme state of consciousness. In the Christian tradition, there is the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. Well, the Holy Ghost, the grace, is personified in the Hindu tradition in the Guru. And it's through this grace, their grace, that we can come into relationship with the Father. So this grace is manifested in the form of Christ, or in the form of the Guru, or in the form of Krishna, or in the form of Buddha. It's in the form. And that becomes our entry point. They become the path. They become the means by which you can become that which they have, that which they carry, that which they are in relationship with, that which they have merged with. But how many people, how many beings on this planet have this? And would you even know about them? And hell, the chance of them speaking English, or being able to come down to your level of mentalization and be able to make sense, is so rare. So for me, that was my experience from the moment of my awakening until this phase completed for me. There was a grace that came. I came from past lifetimes, or whatever reason. Perhaps I have a purpose that has nothing to do with human history or having past lifetimes. And this was necessary for me to come to this relatively quickly in order for me to do a work. Or perhaps it's the result, the fruit of lifetimes and lifetimes of karma, favorable karma and effort, wisdom and maturity. I cannot tell you. All I know, that if there was a lottery, this was the lottery. So I don't know if it's repeatable. I don't know if I can take any of you to this same state. All I know is that I can keep pointing to the reality of who you are. Keep showing to the capacity that you have to receive and implement the path by which you can move in that direction. This is all I can promise you. The rest is up to the universe. And you don't want to jump on this bandwagon any sooner, because when it comes, the responsibility that comes with that, no self-respecting ego would want. So, the problem with the adolescent is it wants to be an adult before it's ready. But once you become an adult, your life is full of problems and work and duties and responsibilities. So the adolescent wants to be an adult, but it doesn't know what it is that it means to be an adult. Well, that's the same thing on the spiritual path. It's better to be a child, or maybe a rebellious adolescent, but to be an adult, it's a whole different category of experience, a whole different phase of the human evolution that we all go through every time we take a birth, and the same principle occurs on the spiritual path. It's not to say that you can't shift significantly from where you were to where you can be this lifetime. And the opportunity of each lifetime is to actualize that possibility as a lived reality for yourself to the best that you can do each lifetime. And that's enough. You're going to inevitably end up in the same place. You are eternal. You're just fooling yourself, thinking you're this one little person, this one little piece of you. Inevitably, you're going to return to truth. This is a temporary phase of untruth. You're going to return to your original nature. It's inevitably going to happen. And since those of you are sitting in this room with me, and those of you who are listening to this and getting it, you're already on this journey. So at this point, Krishna is saying, by unflinching devotion alone. It's not enough to understand. It's not enough to have the principles. It's not enough to even know that you have an ego and know how attached you are. It's something in the category of devotion. And devotion is bodily, it's visceral, it's the heart, it's the drives, it's the whole person being aligned with this possibility. this ability to focus the whole consciousness that occupies the human body on this is a grace. It's something to ask for, to pray for. Because we can't do this ourselves. It's not possible. This opening to prayer, this opening to the divine in humility, to be dust before it, so that it can animate me if it's its will. This is the relationship where this is the ultimate sacrifice, where we give of ourselves as totally as possible. Now that was my experience. It all happened within the first 3 years in India. Extraordinary things happened in that process. But then it all got quieted down. It all became normal. Everything that's described here, if this kept happening 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, what do you think, Arjun? Oh, another darshan. Oh, shit. I was hoping to go out for coffee. It becomes a normal. You get saturated because you start living in that frequency. You become actually more able to be a human being over time because you're no longer lost in what it is to be a human being. You're more able to be yourself, to be what you are as a human being when you become a divine being. It's the ultimate therapeutic outcome. Looking at it from one tiny little small perspective. Mm-hmm. So I've been sitting in this seat with so much energy running through my body as I've literally been vibrating just reading this chapter. Bhagavad Gita is alive for me. It lives for me. I experience each part of the Gita as a direct experience, as maybe some of you do, some proximity of it. So for me, this little book isn't just an interesting story. It's a doorway, a passageway into another aspect of myself. And as I read each of these verses, another aspect of my divine multitudes gets experienced. But after a while, it's like I come back to human, and there's no need to go to this kind of experience. The only reason I'm doing it is because I'm doing this video. I just as soon watch a movie, play golf, go for a hike. There's no difference after a point. There's no separation. These are all, when it's become integrated, it's like you become ordinary again. But you're no longer locked into that one frequency. So it's not like me, I have a 24-hour day like you have. I don't have a 24-hour day like you. Every time I come back down, I'm coming back into a complete new consciousness, a complete new, how am I going to be today? How am I going to be in the next hour? How am I going to be at this meeting? How is it going to be? I never know. I don't know what frequency I'm required to be at. But because I'm working with you, I spend a lot of time in the human frequency. If I quit speaking, then I will live at a higher frequency. But you won't know what's going on. So I hope to train enough of you so that I can live and take a position in the higher frequency. And I'll be much more effective. But right now, I'm fixing the toilet and the sink in the bathroom and taking care of all the things of my daily life, handling the contractor, meeting with Sachimai, going over the business of this work. And that's the frequency I'm in. And when you come forward, I will be able to live at a higher frequency and watch what happens. You'll be saying, okay, enough is enough. Go away. It's already happening. If you don't go away, I'm leaving. Okay, so we're not done yet. There's one more chapter in this phase, but it won't have all this fireworks. And there's some great wisdoms in this next chapter. It's called what is it called? Yoga of meditation? Is that correct? No, it's the yoga of devotion. Living in the state of consciousness of devotion. Functioning from that place. Okay. All glory to Buddha.